Welcome back, folks, to WrestleRant, where we're kicking off my reviews of No Mercy as seen on the WWE Network. Now, I figured I was going to start all of the No Mercy reviews at the start of October, but then I found out that there was another No Mercy event that I completely forgot about. I didn't put on the schedule. It was the UK version of No Mercy that actually happened earlier on in 1999. We had another No Mercy show that same year in October of 99. So I figured I'd talk about both, and I would have to push back the reviews. I did 2 Unforgiven reviews over the weekend instead of just 1. It's a whole crazy schedule. But with this, though, going up on Tuesday, we should be back on track in all my No Mercy reviews. The rest of them should be up in the rest of October, in the months ahead. In the weeks ahead, that is. But No Mercy, 1999, emanating from the UK. Not a good show at all. Definitely of all the No Mercy shows that I've watched up to this point that I'm reviewing this so far. Right now I'm in the middle of No Mercy 2003, and we've had a lot better No Mercy shows than this one. The UK shows, it's weird because a lot of the UK pay-per-views weren't really that good. Like the UK only shows or the we had a few of them, I forgot. I reviewed them last year, but they weren't really that good, and this one really wasn't any exception. It wasn't the worst pay-per-view I've ever seen, but then again, it was also kind of part of the course of 1999, kind of what you would expect, a lot of bullshit finishes, and the matches weren't really that great, so it was what you would expect from 1999, but that doesn't really make it worth watching. So kicking off the show, we had Tiger Ali Singh taking on Gilbert. Awful match. Tiger Ali Singh I've seen a bunch of times on the Jerry Springer Too Hot for TV segment they had on the WWE Network for a couple months ago over the summer. I was never familiar with the character before that, and WWE never brings him up. I never seen anyone write any articles about him. WWE.com sure as hell never covers him, which is weird. I mean, he wasn't around for very long in 1999. And I guess I'm not really shocked because he was not good in the ring at all. He was absolutely awful in the ring. And his mic skills were not that much better. I mean, he was a fine character. I think he had the Sheik's theme. I'm pretty sure he had the Iron Sheik's theme when he came out. But the matches sucked. It was an awful character. You know, your typical throwing money out at people. It was like the Great Khali meets Ted DiBiase, just on a lot lesser of a scale. It was a stupid gimmick, so I guess I'm not really surprised that WWE never acknowledges him, but it's funny because I've just never heard of him before this year. But yeah, the match sucked, not a great way of kicking off the show. After that, we had the Ministry of Darkness made up of Viscera and the Acolytes taking on the Brood, Edge, Christian, Gangrel. Decent match, didn't really need to be as long as it was. We would have a lot better matches between Edge and Christian and the Hardys in the years to come. I'm pretty sure at No Mercy, I think 99, the 99 installment, and maybe 01, or maybe it was 2000. I'm not exactly sure, but I'm pretty sure there were 2 other shows in No Mercy's history where Edge and Christian faced off with the Hardys. I watched so many pay-per-views so far, they just all kind of blend together after a while. But it was an okay match. It wasn't the worst, but Edge and, the Acolytes were not the greatest opponents for Edge and Christian. Gangrel was never a great wrestler. Viscera, same thing. Viscera. Not this kind of the same thing. Viscera. Sorry, I always mispronounce that. Never the greatest worker. Did not really mesh all that well with the rest of the Acolytes and the Brood. They weren't really great opponents for him. So I mean, it wasn't a terrible match, but I think the biggest thing riding against it was the time length. 14 minutes was a little ridiculous. The second longest match of the night next to the main event, so it really did not need to be that long. Definitely not a good match, but I think the fact that it went 14 minutes was what kind of killed it and what made it worse than it actually was. After that, we had Steve Blackman taking on Droz, one of Steve Blackman's first appearances in the WWF, so a nice little showcase for him. Doesn't mean the match was good. Droz was never a great wrestler either. This was the same guy that I'm pretty sure was involved in the Beyond the Mat documentary where he could make himself puke. Just a stupid gimmick. And never the greatest wrestler. Not really a good match. A fine win for Blackman in his first match in, or one of his first few matches in, I'm pretty sure. But just the match sucked. There's really nothing to watch from this match. I mean, it was not very well wrestled. No story told. Steve Blackman comes out, hits a few of his signature maneuvers, wins the match, and that was it. So there's really nothing to it other than that. After that, we had Kane taking on Midian, with the Ministry of Darkness getting involved. They were all over the show, by the way. They were in this match. They were in the McMahon X-Pac match. They were in the main event. Ministry of Darkness was all over this show. And again, part of the course of the Attitude Era, I understand that. I'm just not a fan of it. Seeing a faction and get involved in like 3 different matches in the same show, I thought was ridiculous. And it made the show fucking convoluted from start to finish, or at least for these bigger matches. But The match sucked. Midian, again, not a great worker. This was a better match than we would get from Naked Midian and William Regal a couple years later, which was, oh fuck, I'm still reeling from that. I'm still trying to erase that from my mind. But I will have to talk about that when I get to my other No Mercy reviews. But yeah, the match sucked. We had a lot of interference from the Ministry of Darkness. X-Pac came to Kane's aid, and he helped fend off the rest of the Ministry of Darkness. X-Pac, all by himself, fended off the Ministry of Darkness. It was kind of ridiculous. So, match sucked, but it kind of did lead to some other things later on in the show. After that, we had Nicole Bass taking on Tori. Tori was supposed to face, I'm pretty sure she was supposed to face Sable. Sable said she had a chest cold, a huge chest cold, which was pretty funny, and got a kick out of Jerry Lawler in commentary. So her bodyguard, Nicole Bass, I'm not exactly sure. Nicole, she took on Tori, and essentially a 30-second squash. Match was over in a minute, under a minute, and she was not a great worker either. Nicole wasn't. Very, very, very sloppy in the ring. Tori just got squashed here, did really nothing to help her whatsoever, so kind of a waste of time. After that, we had Shane McMahon taking on X-Pac for the European Championship. Easily the best match up to this point. Very well wrestled. This was the match of any match in the show that could have gotten more time. Instead, they gave it to Billy Gunn and Mankind, which I'll get to in a minute, or the six-man tag team match, which was not really good, all that good at all. But yeah, this was entertaining for what it was. I mean, it wasn't really a wrestling match so much as it was like a brawl, and again, a lot of interference from Ministry of Darkness. Kane getting involved, but in the end, though, Ministry of Darkness ended up winning once again, winning the battle once again against X-Pac and Kane, helping Shane McMahon win and retain his European Championship. So that was that. X-Pac, unfortunately falls short of winning the match and the championship yet again in a rematch from WrestleMania, but it was as entertaining as their match from Mania, so I can't really complain. After that, Billy Gunn taking on Mankind. Nothing on the line. It's kind of a standard singles match. An okay match. Billy Gunn was always a very good worker. It's just that no one really saw him as main event material. Again, the fact they put him on second to last, the fact they had him go over Mankind, really said a lot about how they viewed Billy Gunn at that period in time. I think it said more about Billy Gunn's push than it did Mankind's quote-unquote demotion. He was always a big star regardless, though. It's not like they were de-pushing with this period in time. It's not like he was in the opener, losing to Billy Gunn. So it was a fine match up until the finish. I'm pretty sure, I think Billy Gunn hit the Famouser, and Mankind forgot to kick it. It was a very convoluted finish, and it didn't come off very well at all. A botched finish. But the rest of the match was okay. A big win for Billy Gunn, so it established credibility with the fans, or at least for a time, because, again, he would never really amount to anything. He would win King of the Ring that year. But again, no one really saw him as a potential threat to the main event scene or the world title or what have you. So I could see what they were trying to go for, but in the long run, though, long-term thinking, it was kind of a waste of time. And then in the main event, easily the best match in the entire show, Stone Cold Steve Austin defending the WWE Championship against The Undertaker and Triple H in a no disqualification triple threat match. Again, typical brawl. The multi-man matches, as they always say, are very hit or miss. This one was more in the hit category than it was a miss. Fit in perfectly with the time period, which was essentially all the Attitude Era was. A lot less wrestling, a lot more brawling, which some people prefer, and that's perfectly fine. But me personally, I prefer a great wrestling match as opposed to a brawl. It's all over the place, but we would get a lot of interference from the Ministry of Darkness throughout. In the end, though, Stone Cold Steve Austin overcomes the odds, still the WWE Champion, some entertaining action, probably the best way of going off the show, because the rest of the show sucked. So obviously, I would not recommend you go out of your way to watch the show, the No Mercy that happened later on that year. Not too much better, but I thought it was significantly better than this one. It continued the bad trend of bad UK pay-per-views. The UK crowds are always amazing. I mean, I'm a bit biased towards that. I am part English, but I've always said the English crowds are always awesome. So it's nothing against them. It's just WWE has a tendency, or at least did have a tendency at that period in time. Raws nowadays in the UK, in England, are always great. But when they go over there for pay-per-views, or at least when they used to in the late 90s, early 2000s, the pay-per-views were never really that great at all. And this was kind of a glaring example of that. Other than, SummerSlam 92, which was one of the greatest SummerSlams of all time. Other than that show, the pay-per-views they did during the Attitude Era were not great whatsoever. But yeah, this show was only worth watching for the main event, and maybe Shane McMahon and X-Pac. Everything else was kind of a waste of time. The undercard was awful. No real matches stood out in a good way other than the two main events between Shane and X-Pac, which they already had a rematch from WrestleMania, so really nothing new there. And the Austin Taker and Triple H match, which we would see more of anyway, because a lot of that era was a lot, just like I said, just essentially brawling. So not a good show. Don't watch it. Some better No Mercy shows on the way that we'll be talking about here on the channel in the weeks to come. Up next with my review of No Mercy 1999. I know the same year, but it was a different time period though. Only a couple months later, not same time period, but you know what I mean. It was later on in that year in October, so I'll be talking about that this upcoming Saturday. But in the meantime, and in between time, you guys can catch me on Twitter at WrestleRant, on Facebook at facebook.com/Graham.Jason.Matthews. Be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. All support is greatly appreciated. Last but not least, check out the website, nextairwrestling.net, for full reviews of Raw, SmackDown, Main Event, NXT, Impact Wrestling, Ring of Honor, and everything else in between. And that about does it. Again, guys, have a great rest of your week. I'm Graham Jason Matthews, and I'll catch you guys down the road.